Hello, welcome to Yelling at Birds. Matt here. Hopefully you're all doing well tonight. It's been a little bit. I know I have a few videos loaded up, but I'm just kind of struggling with the editing process, and I just do that and give up a little bit. But I wrote something last month about my 2 years of sobriety, and I wanted to make a video about that too, just to kind of, hopefully if there's somebody else out there that is making that choice to not drink or, tackle any other addictions that they have, what I learned from it, what I felt as I was going through it, and maybe that can be helpful. Really, what this whole thing is about is me just kind of not unloading burdens, but just kind of going through what I've learned, my experiences, and hoping that resonates with somebody out there. And I know that obviously this year has been very challenging on everybody. Everyone is, you're living with a higher level of stress, like constant stress than you're used to. Even if your job hasn't been affected, your life hasn't been affected that much, there's always this veil of worry that's over everybody. Regardless of what you think, what your beliefs are, what you choose to take seriously, not take seriously, there's always just this overlying what if from all the news and everything happening. But so it's been 2 years and 1 month, and basically everybody knows about, you've heard about like step programs, about various things that people would do, or communities that people would be a part of when they're making that decision to stop drinking. I mainly was in the smart groups, and they take more of a scientific approach as opposed to AA, which they do lean on religion a little bit more. Not saying one's better than the other. Different groups resonate for different people, and for some people it's neither of those, and it's something completely different. But pretty much the phases that I went through initially, and since I haven't just been in trouble one time with my drinking, so I've gone through certain phases a few times. And why it was different this time, I don't know. I think this time I was a little bit more, allowed myself to be a little more vulnerable. I opened up more to family and friends, and I was more vocal about what I was struggling with and what I was going through. This podcast being part of it, and I didn't necessarily start this with the intention of it being a recovery podcast or anything like that. More towards mental health, but that's what I have the most experience with. So, and I know I haven't been consistent lately with this, but I think the world's been anything but consistent this past year for a lot of people, and I have to kind of forgive myself a little bit with that. So let's just walk right through. So the phase one for me was the decision. So and then if you're listening, so I'll post this on Apple Podcasts and everything too. So if you're listening, I'm wearing Charlie shirt. So you'll have to watch me on YouTube or Facebook to see what Charlie shirt is. One of the Charlie shirts. Anyway, phase one was just the decision. It was, for me, that day I got 2 years ago, two plus years ago, that I was pulled over and arrested. I had a weekend to think about it. I had a weekend where I was just, by myself in jail, in a holding room. And that's, about 2 days of nothing. 2 days of no reading materials, no phone, no anything, just no other people, just me in a 3x6, 3x7 foot room, with a toilet and a little raised thing and a pad for a bed, and that's it. A lot of people have been through a lot worse than that, but so 2 days you kind of go through a lot of feelings, obviously. For one thing, you sober up while you're in there and go through the physical feelings of that. But, at that moment I had a choice, for what I was doing, or, I could choose to continue. I could choose to get out of this one again, deal with whatever consequences, and then continue to make the same decisions. I didn't see that as a valid option, because I think that regardless of how well I could have hidden, obviously I can't hide that. It was in the paper, friends and family knew about it, but regardless of that part of it, if I were to continue, I don't know how much longer I would have been around. I'm lucky so far that I haven't killed anybody, or I haven't been seriously injured with my decisions. So phase one was that decision, kind of the initial shame, the initial, what the fuck am I doing here again? I can't believe I did this again. So you kind of beat yourself up quite a bit, and you just have to make that choice of whether or not you want to stop or not. Do you want to stop? Do you want to continue letting something control your life? And thankfully I made the choice that I wanted to stop, that was enough. There's one path that's hard, that involves a lot of discussions, a lot of tough, difficult discussions with family and friends, a lot of openness, a lot of vulnerability. And then the other path is just saying what you want, saying what you think everybody wants to hear, just enough to get them off your back again to continue. And then that path is, I saw that path was early death, or that path was prison, or that path was I choose to drink and drive in the wrong night and the wrong time, and I end up killing somebody or hurting somebody. So the path to continue drinking just wasn't there. I eliminated that right away. And it's a desperate situation. So desperation is good and can be good, a force of good in some instances, because it's really the elimination of options. And it's almost freeing to not have as many options in certain circumstances, because I have no choice. I can choose to continue struggling. Either way is going to be a struggle, so I can continue struggling while actively destroying myself and destroying relationships around me, or I can continue to struggle while inviting more people in, while talking to more people, while actually expressing myself. So phase one was the choice. So then phase two, which is, for me, was, and everybody will go through this as well, if you give up actively poisoning your body with something, your body's going to start to shed itself of those. And it's different, obviously, for alcohol and nicotine, heroin, any other substance or activity or drug. It's different, the timelines, but you go through a phase where your body starts to kind of get used to shed itself of those toxins, and you start to feel really good, and it's rewarding, and you still have, so I was screwed up, but it's basically, looking at the world through rose-colored glasses or rose-colored lenses. This is like the rose-colored lenses phase, where you have that instant motivation right away. You wake up, you have energy, you are excited, you haven't felt that way in years, you're so happy you made that decision, you're talking to new people, everyone around you is supportive and vocal and happy and proud of the decision that you've made. And that's really the time when you really need to be the most vulnerable, and you really need to do what you need to do to set up a structure that's going to kind of sustain you and be there for you if you find yourself wanting to revert back to some of those choices, or if you happen to fall back into using again, you have that structure there to help, to kind of support you so you don't fall all the way down, and you can kind of pick yourself up a little bit quicker. But that is going to, finding meetings that are good for you, being vulnerable and communicating with friends and family for support, finding things that you enjoy doing, activities that you enjoy doing, so that, when you hit that moment, being creative, learning new skills, doing that life thing, exploring new areas, learning new things. That's really the time, because you have just motivation on tap, and you have a lot of people around you that are very happy for you, that very happy and supportive of the decisions that you're making. So, and that being said, there's some people that's a phase when you have to cut a lot of people out of your life, and that can be difficult. But phase two, I think average it's about 6 months. Maybe the first 6 months you make that decision. And if any of you out there are nearing that 6 month threshold, I'm sorry, but phase three, the work that you do in phase two is because phase three is when reality really sets in. Because after phase two, you move into, I've heard somebody say it in a meeting, they use the acronym SOBER. Son of a bitch, everything's real. So you get past the rose-colored glasses phase, and then you wake up one day and you're tired, or you feel like you don't have as much energy as you used to, or something's off, because you start to think, is this it? Am I really did I give up drinking or whatever you're doing to just exist in this world where people are fighting, where everyone's stressed, where I have to go to work every day, so you wake up one day and you realize that you don't have that instant motivation. That's where all of the work of phase two starts to pay off, because hopefully you've kind of built that structure in your life where you kind of, you wake up and you feel, regardless of how you feel, all right, I gotta go to the gym or go for a walk or go for a run, or this is when I journal, this is when I write, or these are the people that I would call if I'm feeling a certain way. And if you have that set up, that'll help you greatly when you're moving beyond that first initial, your body's happy, you're energized, you're excited, there's a lot of people around, because it's kind of it's not just your body and your feelings or your emotions, but it's everyone around you too. And it's not anyone's responsibility to make sure that you're okay. That's completely your responsibility to continue doing the things that you need to do to be happy with yourself. And it's really hard for a lot of people because everyone else around you is all living their own lives, and their lives are as vivid and complex as yours is to you. So when you hit that, you hit that time frame, some of those people that are supportive or checking in or communicating, they might start to just naturally migrate back to their own lives, and you might not hear from them as much as you did before. And that's the same with anything. That's the same with any job change. That has nothing to do with your recovery or you as a person or your relationship with them. That's just how people are. There's so much information and so many things going on in our lives that we can't possibly just continue to keep up and check in. I think people do what they can. I think people do the best they can with their attention, and hopefully if you have those friends, those family members that, if you pop into their head at a certain point, they know they can just message you and see how everything's going. But just naturally there's a certain phase where a lot of people will, maybe not a lot, but people will just start to naturally just migrate away from everything, because everything's real now. Life just kind of becomes life. And you hit a certain point and people just kind of, through no fault of their own, just kind of, the further you get away from that decision, the more they see you as just another person living their lives. And you can't see everybody's struggle. And so they can't, if you wake up one day and you're struggling, there's not like a bat signal that goes out to everybody in your life to tell them, oh, I better check in with Matt. I bet he's probably not feeling good today. No, that's impossible. So the work that you do in phase two, in those first 6 months, really enjoy it, really enjoy those feelings, those good feelings that you made a good choice, and be proud of yourself. And then phase 3 is that work. And I think phase 3, that's just kind of the last one. And then I think it starts to, you have to look back on those milestones, that first 6 months, that first year, that first 2 years, that first 3 years. It's important to kind of revisit those past phases and be proud of yourself, because it's challenging. There's really no directions. There's no manual to life. So we're all figuring it out. And we all have our things that we escape into. And I don't know if I mentioned this in another video, or if I wrote it, if it was in the last thing that I wrote, but I think that it's corny to say that we're lucky to have such an apparent problem, but it is lucky in a way, because I think everybody has to have their own escapes that they like to do when they're stressed out, or when they can't, when they're having difficulty coping with just everyday life. Some people paint, some people draw, some people bake, some people knit, or whatever, video game, watch movies, which all of those things, if you start to do it all of those things you can become obsessed with and start doing it at an unhealthy level. But addiction, alcoholism, when you start doing those at an unhealthy level, it creates a very apparent and real problem. One where it's very apparent that you need to make a change with your life. If someone and I always use baking as an example. Let's say someone down the street bakes at an unhealthy level. They're just always baking. No one's gonna think like, holy shit, Jane should really calm down. Like, no one dislikes the person that always like comes in with like fresh bread, or like sends cookies around to their neighbors. But what if that person never sees that as a problem, and they're not exploring a certain part of their life where they could find more happiness? I always kind of think about that a little bit. And that's why I think that, yes, I wish I would have learned these things, and I wish I would have made this decision a lot sooner. You don't even need hindsight. I mean, for 10 years I was making dumb decisions. For 10 years I could have learned at any point. Some people it takes longer, but I did. And so you get to that phase 3, I think you should really just continue to be mindful of yourself, continue to be proud of yourself, continue to be forgiving of yourself if you don't have as much of a productive day as you would have hoped for. And if you're doing that right now, I mean, you're in the middle of in the middle of an election season, of a pandemic, a lot of stuff. I know we're piling on 2020 here as being a pretty negative year, pretty bad year. But it's a year. It's another year. 2021, there's never any guarantee that once the clock strikes midnight on the 31st that a new year starts, that it's going to be any different. Life is going to continue to be life. So whatever choices that you think you need to make, any choices that you can make to start making your life better, even without addiction, you can make that at any time. Sooner the better on any of that stuff. That's another thing that I learned over the last couple of years through going to meetings, listening to people. A lot of the things that are talked about in recovery meetings, especially SMART recovery meetings, they really they can really be applied to anything in life. I mean, you sit in a room with a bunch of people that you've never met, and what I hear are a room of people just trying to be happy. Not really, maybe they didn't learn how, or maybe they had too much direction in one area, or not enough, but it's just a room full of people trying to find happiness, trying to make it, trying to not struggle, and trying to find enjoyment in their lives. And that's really what we're all doing here. Really. I think at our core, we all really want the same things. Like, we all want to feel like we're a part of the community. We all want to feel, sometimes I do that and the word just like drops right out. We all want to feel useful. We all want to feel connected. We all want to feel happy. We all, I think, want to feel like we're making a difference in some way, shape, or form. I think we just disagree on how that happens, how that should happen, what the best way to be productive, or in which areas should we be the most productive. But really, I mean, we're all just trying to figure it out. We're all just trying to live our lives and find happiness and joy. And that's the other thing that's important in phase 3, or whatever phase you're in, is you got to find joy in life. It's not easy. We don't know what's going on in anybody's lives. Even, somebody that seems like they have it all, that they're successful, they not a care in the world. We have no idea what it's like to be them. So all we can really do, and all we really know, is what's going on in our lives. So do what you can to find joy. Do what you can to make anyone's day better because you're involved in it. If you have an interaction with somebody, know that we're all only living our lives. We're the only people living our lives. So we're the ones that have to be responsible for our own happiness. You can't be responsible for someone else's. You can do what you can not to make it more challenging for someone else to find happiness, but that's all our own responsibilities. Yeah, I think that's all I have. I appreciate you being here. I'll try to do more of these. I'll try. But love to do more interviews. Haven't really thought about it for a little while. I've been just I found myself falling back into some mental states when I was drinking more, and that's more isolation, more kind of tucking away. But I think a lot of us have been feeling that lately, that I shouldn't really be too hard on myself with that. But anyway, stay safe out there. Talk to your family members, talk to your friends, be open, be good to yourself, and just be kind to others. Have a good night.